You know, it's been 3 years since we've been together. 2019 was our last Light of Hope breakfast. And like so many other events, you've heard about this pandemic thing. A lot has happened since we were together, if you think about it. The Chiefs won a Super Bowl, right? The Chiefs lost a Super Bowl. Tom Brady beat the Chiefs. Tom Brady retired. Tom Brady's back. And you know what? In spite of that pandemic, Casa, like so many other organizations, continued to serve the kids who need that help. In fact, Angie did the math for me. We talked about this yesterday. 3,100 kids supported by Casa while we were away and unable to meet here. So thank you for your continued support. We had a virtual event last year, 2 years in a row, actually. Last year was live. So thank you for your continued support of this event. And I'm glad you made it today. By the way, is everybody weather aware? We have a Fox 4 table here. Where's our table? Angie, did you put them in the back of the room, I hope? Where's our Fox 4 table? There they are. This is the first year we've had a table. I'm excited about that. And I won't put Michelle Bogowith, our meteorologist who I saw earlier. You know, we had a big storm come through last night, and we've been weather aware for a week getting ready for it. So we're glad that we kept you safe. We're working for you, as we like to say. We have some sponsors. We don't do this alone, right? We cannot help these kids. We cannot support our volunteers without the support of some terrific folks. One other thing that's changed since I started doing this about 15 years ago was these. So I'm going to put these on real quick. Our presenting sponsor today, U.S. Engineering, and our honorary chairs, Lee and Tyler Notberg. Lee and Tyler, thank you. We're going to hear from them here in just a little bit. Our enduring sponsors, Gary and Kathy Bussing. Yes. Gary and Kathy Bussing and America's Auto Auction. Spotlight sponsors, Brian and Linda Johnson, Sven and Julie Sykes with Colliers International, and Lockton, Kelly and Ron Lockton, supporting us again this year. Radiant sponsors, Sandy and Ed Freed, Peter and Carmen Kowalski, and our Guardian sponsors, Black & Veatch, Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City, Larry and Carol Blummel, D.H. Pace Company, Hallmark, Lead Bank, Gene and Tom McDonald, Kate and John Mitchell Family Fund, Rob and Rob LLC, Shook Hardy and Bacon, and Susan Stanton. How about a nice round of applause for all of our supporters who have tables, many of them here today as well. Thank you. We mentioned Lee and Tyler, our honorary chairs, and also the Committee of Hope that they worked with to help bring this event back to you this year, and you'll find those committee members in your program. We're also excited this morning to have some of our partners in the court system who help guide these kids through the process, working with our court-appointed special advocates. Honored to have so many of the judges and commissioners here. Hold your applause. I'm going to mention some of those names. From the Jackson County Family Court, the Honorable Kevin Harrell. He's the administrative judge for Family Court for 2022 and next year. The Honorable Nancy Alamafar, the Honorable William Jackson III, and the Honorable Katie Rooney. From the 16th Circuit Judicial Court, the Honorable J. Dale Youngs. He's the presiding judge of the 16th Circuit. The Honorable Martina Peterson, the Honorable Justin Howard, the Honorable Jalila Otto, the Honorable Jeanette Roadcap, and the Honorable John Torrance, as well as the Honorable Mary Weir. And we have a couple of retired commissioners and judges, the Honorable Molly Merrigan and the Honorable Ann Mesley. Thank you, and a nice round of applause for our judges and commissioners. We also have support staff who work with us, guide us through. Court Administrator Mary Marquez, Deputy Court Administrator Teresa Bird, the Director of the Office of the Guardian Ad Litem Kathy Rogers, and the Children's Division Regional Director Brian West. We're also honored to have the President and CEO of Casa of Johnson and Wyandotte counties, our Kansas counterparts, Natalie Julian and staff, as well as Executive Director of the Missouri Casa Association, Leanne Reese. Big round of applause for them and their support. Turn this over to your board chair. I just want to remind you of a couple of quick housekeeping notes. When you leave, if you parked in the garage, the gates will be open. You should be able to get right out. If you parked in another lot, make sure you get that validated. So we're working for you to make sure your exit is as easy, hopefully, as your arrival. I'd like to introduce to you now Vanessa Sims. She's the board chair of Jackson County Casa. Vanessa?
Thank you, John. What a beautiful, beautiful sight this morning. Wonderful to see you all. When I look out amongst this crowd, I realize how truly blessed we all are to be able to gather together in person for such an important cause, our Casa children. I wish the more than 1,200 Casa kids could see you here today and see how much support is truly behind them. Casa's mission is to be a child's voice in court. We recruit, train, and support lay volunteers who act as advocates on behalf of the best interests of the children and families we serve. But our advocacy doesn't stop at the Casa volunteer. Every child we serve receives a 3-person team consisting of the dedicated Casa volunteer, a staff attorney known as the child's guardian ad litem, and 3, a staff case supervisor who is an expert in the child welfare system and helps to guide our volunteers. The model of this 3 caring adults to every one child takes resources, lots and lots of resources, which is why we're here today. When I began my term as board chair, I challenged myself and the board to do 2 very important things for Casa in 2022. 1, to grow our critically important work in becoming a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive organization. And 2, invite at least 2 people to make a significant investment of their time, talent, treasure in Jackson County Casa. So, while I have you here today, I ask us to make this personal. I challenge each and every one of you to consider becoming a Casa volunteer. It doesn't take much time. Not much time at all to attend one of our weekly volunteer orientations to learn if this is a good match for you. If it's not the right time to volunteer, please think about referring someone you know. In particular, we have a goal to increase the diversity of our wonderful volunteer corps. 60% of the kids we serve are children of color. We would like Casa kids to be able to see themselves represented in who serves them. But truly, no matter your race or ethnicity or background, we need caring adults. Caring adults to be a consistent presence in the lives of our kids, so we're there for every child who needs a Casa. Finally, speaking of our amazing Casa volunteers, will you please stand so we may recognize you for your service and your dedication? Please, Casa volunteers, stand. Thank you very much. Last year, Casa volunteers provided nearly 25,000 hours of service to 1,170 children in our community. We appreciate each and every one of you. Staff and board, I didn't forget you. Our president and CEO, Angie Blummel, wanted to be the one to thank you a little later on this morning. So again, thank you all for being here. Thank you for considering being a Casa volunteer. And please continue enjoying your breakfast and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Vanessa, thank you. Appreciate the work you're doing and the board as well. So it's been 3 years since we've been together, and I was remiss in mentioning that something else has happened since we were all together, and this will thrill about half the room, and if the rest of you would just be polite. The Jayhawks won a national basketball title. Okay, maybe 3/4 of the room. I had to get that in. I was on the 7-year plan there, so. As I mentioned earlier, our presenting sponsor, of course, is U.S. Engineering, and Lee and Tyler Notberg are honorary chairs. And Tyler is the 5th generation CEO of U.S. Engineering, and I guess Lee is the CEO of the family, right? She's the one in charge, as it should be. U.S. Engineering, established in 1893, it's long been a fixture in our community, focusing on very complicated HVAC and plumbing engineering issues. You're not coming to my house to fix a leaky faucet. You're building big projects and making a difference in the construction industry. The support of Casa, though, actually runs downhill a bit. There's Chief People Officer Rebecca David served on the board and just kept reminding these two, hey, let me tell you about this organization I'm involved in and why it's important. And it worked over time because they're not only honorary chairs of this breakfast, but they also served with Gary and Kathy Bussing as honorary chairs of a capital campaign that was in the middle of a pandemic, right? I mean, they were a part of it. And it just and that just goes to show you the leadership that we've had and the support you've provided in spite of what we've been through for the past couple of years. So it's my pleasure right now, if you would come forward, to turn this over to Lee and Tyler Notberg, your honorary chairs of this Light of Hope breakfast.
Good morning.
Thanks, John. Good morning to everybody. I first wanted to thank Rebecca David for introducing U.S. Engineering to Casa so many years ago. And I want to thank all of the amazing people here from U.S. Engineering for showing up bright and early this morning. Thank you very much. Round of applause. There you go. Actions are worth 1,000 words, so showing up makes a huge statement. And anybody who's volunteered for Casa knows that means a great deal, just being present. Our purpose today is twofold. First, to celebrate, and second, to make a request. Let's start with the celebration. Lee and I are thrilled to share with you the renderings of Casa's new building, which is under construction as we speak. So you can see on the boards over here what the renderings look like. This new space is going to double the size of the facility from 5,000 to 10,000 square feet so that Casa staff and volunteers can have a more comfortable and a more professional environment for serving the children and the families that are involved. Everybody deserves that space. More important than the building, however, is what happens inside. It'll be accessible, child-friendly, warm, and welcoming. In short, it will meet the needs of those who we serve. Casa volunteers and staff will be able to meet with kids and families in a calming space before and after court hearings, which are always very stressful. Advocates can get snacks, toiletries, hygiene items for their Casa kids from the new volunteer resource library, and volunteers can participate in state-of-the-art training in something other than a damp, musty basement. Staff and volunteers will be able to grab toys and take games to their kids when they go on visits. Older kids can use the computer workstations, laundry, and shower facilities that will be set up just for them. And this new environment will meet the unmet needs of all of the kids, and it's just steps away from Jackson County Family Court, which makes it easy for everyone we serve to access Casa. Casa's capital campaign, which John and Vanessa mentioned, was called Space to Thrive. And we raised $3.75 million in investments from our community this last year. I have to say that's incredible, but it's also not surprising. It's incredible because in the midst of a global pandemic, campaign co-chairs Gary and Kathy Bussing relentlessly pursued the campaign and backed it with their own generosity. Their generosity of their time, their generosity of their efforts, and their generosity in the dollars that they gave to the campaign. They led an effort that helped Casa reach its goal and then some in less than 12 months. That was incredible. And at the same time, it's unsurprising for two reasons. First of all, Lee and I know that Gary and Kathy are real leaders who've been committed to Casa's community for many, many years. Second, Lee and I also know that when our Kansas City community faces challenges, time and time again, we've seen the community rise to the occasion. It's in our DNA to be generous. It's in our DNA to be engaged. So it wasn't any different in this case. But we all know Casa literally couldn't have done this without Gary and Kathy's help. So a round of applause for Gary and Kathy Bussing. Lee and I were honored to work with the two of you, and you'll hear the story of one of our greatest supporters here in just a little bit, the Sunderland Foundation. But before we get to that, Lee and I have a request. When we said yes to serving as honorary chairs for the Light of Hope breakfast right after the Capitol campaign, a few people asked us why we were going to try and do that back to back. And the answer was easy. The Capitol campaign was about putting the hardware and the infrastructure in place for Casa. This is about making sure that we fund the software that really matters, that really gets individuals involved. Fancy buildings without any people in them are just fancy buildings. And we've talked many times about how frustrating it is that we need Casa in our community, but that's just the reality. We'll always need Casa. Children will always need Casa. Abuse and neglect won't just disappear because we wish they weren't in our community. So this morning is about making sure that we face that reality head on and we do something about it together. This morning is about ensuring that our investments grow so that Casa can serve an increasing number of children who experience the tragedy of abuse and neglect. Casa volunteers, many of whom are here today, fight with every last bit of energy to break the generational cycles and ensure that kids can do what they do best, which is to be happy and healthy kids. We can all help, and we need to keep fighting. So please join us today when you're asked to do so and make generous donations in support of Casa's kids. Thank you.
The Light of Hope Award is an award that we give out annually at the Light of Hope Breakfast to an individual, a corporation, a foundation who has made a real and lasting impact on Jackson County Casa. This year's Light of Hope Award winner is the Sunderland Foundation.
So the foundation seeks to improve the quality of life in the organizations and the communities that we serve. We pay particular attention to the population that has the most need, those that are in the greatest need. Communities face lots of challenges. Society is becoming more complicated. Just in the last 3 or 4 years, things have become more difficult for many organizations that do nonprofit work. And so by investing in nonprofits, we hope that they'll be able to build capacity, they'll be able to work on society problems, and again, hope to improve the quality of life in those that are underserved.
We chose the Sunderland Foundation for so many reasons, not the least of which the Sunderland Foundation was a huge supporter of our Space to Thrive Capital campaign, but also because this is a foundation that affects a great deal of our community. When you look around the Kansas City nonprofit landscape, and the Sunderland family and the Sunderland Foundation has invested in so much, in so many projects in our own community. So we were just thrilled and honored, really, to be selected by the Sunderland Foundation for support in our capital campaign.
The foundation was started back in 1945 by Lester T. Sunderland, and Mr. Sunderland was involved in the Ash Grove Cement Company dating back to 1909, and that was the family business that grew and prospered clear up until 2018 when it sold. There were 4 generations of Sunderlands that ran the business, Lester being the first one. And along with the success of the business, the foundation grew. And in 2018, the family decided to sell Ash Grove. And that's how we now find ourselves running a very large private foundation with the size and scale that we have, and really trying to do thoughtful grant making in a number of areas and in a number of communities. And I think we're making really significant impact.
I think the foundation was excited to invest in Jackson County Casa because they have a real heart for ensuring that children, in particular, have everything that they need to have safe, healthy, happy childhoods. And so I think we were a good fit for the family and for the foundation trustees. I think they know Jackson County Casa, we serve as a child's voice in court, and we leverage the commitment and dedication of over 350 active volunteers annually. I think they liked that, and we were so fortunate to be partnered with them.
The fact that your request and your project was a capacity building request that really will enable a lot more children to come through your system and achieve the remarkable results that you and your volunteers do, that's really important.
With their generous support and investment, Jackson County Casa will be able to literally double our physical space, which means that we can host more volunteer trainings to recruit and support court-appointed special advocate volunteers. It means that we'll have more space for community meetings with our partners like the court, Children's Division, and most importantly, it means that kids will know that there is a safe and friendly and welcoming place for them, just for them, before or after court, maybe when emotions can be running high and can be difficult, or just to come and receive some support, meet with their Casa volunteer. It means so much. The Sunderland Foundation investment is allowing us to do things that really we only dreamed about before, and those dreams are coming true.
Our Light of Hope honoree for this year, 2021-22, the Sunderland Foundation and its president, Randy Vance, here to accept the award.
When we are talking about volunteers who achieve excellence and go above and beyond, Steve is at the top of that list. Steve completely resembles Teresa in his commitment to the kids on his cases and what we hope that we can provide to every kid in Casa's care. I think more than anything, he is empathetic. He sees families for who they are and doesn't expect them to be something else. He sees the relationship between a child and a parent as important, as sacred, something worth fighting for.
He's definitely an active listener, and I think that that's so important when you're working with teenagers. A lot of times teenagers just want to be heard. Just the fact that he listens, which I think is really important when working with teenagers. Honestly, when working with everybody.
Steve's a busy man, but he will do everything that he can to make sure everybody is up to date on needs of a child on his case.
It can seem a little scary to work with older youth. It takes patience. And Steve definitely has patience. And so he actually takes the time and energy to like pour into his kids. You can watch his passion as he's like talking to them or as he talks about them.
I've been a Casa volunteer now for almost 4 years. I work for the YMCAs of Greater Kansas City. I take care of all their Head Start centers. Through my work at the YMCAs, I spend a lot of time with a lot of kids, and as much as I love it, I decided that I had enough time and I'd like to do a little more one-on-one, and I selected Casa for a couple of reasons. The main reason is I felt like I could help more kids that way. It's 14, 15 kids, 16 kids, depending on whether you count the babies, and I do.
We don't ask our Casa volunteers to make a lifetime commitment to the kids that they serve. But Steve has seen that he is someone that was trusted by this child who became a parent in the process of losing her parents in one way or another, and has made it his life's mission commitment to remain as a stable role model for her and her family.
The best example that I have of Steve is when he came to do an older youth workshop with us. He was just so willing to come and like teach our older youth things that he feels like they should know when they transition into adulthood. So I thought that was really cool.
There was a kiddo who was having some issues with anger, and there were some holes punched in walls from some altercations, and Steve decided that he needed to go in there and talk about repercussions and talk about how to fix things that we break, and that's what he did. He went in there and patched some walls and had conversations about how to be the best man or how to be the best woman, how to be the best person that he could be.
And so I encouraged all of them, and still do encourage every kid that I get to start their own toolbox. So, you need a pair of pliers, you need a screwdriver, and so you just start building those. And by building that toolbox, those are things you'll use all your life. So if we can, it's just another tool or another step in their progression of life, things that you're going to need. And if I can show them that, then that's good.
We can usually count on Steve to be there for our continuing education programs as well as volunteer events. He is still committed to becoming a better advocate himself.
Somebody let him know that we needed somebody, a volunteer at the Pie in the Face station. Just no question. He's like, you guys need it done? I'll do it.
But I got 80 or 90 pies in my face during the course of the day.
Youth are able to pick up on whether or not people care about them or not, and Steve does a great job at like showing them that he's present and he's not going anywhere.
He just has this like super friendly spirit about him deep down in his soul. He is like a kid at heart.
And he is just one of those people that is so committed to Casa and to the work that he does that he makes sure that everyone knows it.
I believe, if you share your love and your heart enough, then they know that you're being real with them and that you're really trying to help. There's a lot of ups and downs. Sometimes it can be really tough. Sometimes you just want to cry, and but other times you're so happy and so overjoyed, and it's why I do it. I'm there to help the kids out. I have God-given talents, and I want to use them. I want to share what I can share with those kids, and so when that happens, that's why I do Casa.
"4 years and 20 kids whose lives are a lot better later." Steve Denny, you're Teresa Rabideau Volunteer of Excellence honoree this morning. Steve, thank you. Congratulations, Steve. Thank you for all you're doing, and certainly an inspiration to the other volunteers and maybe some volunteers to be right here in the room with us. We've got a keynote speaker coming up, but first it's my pleasure to introduce, I don't know that he volunteers for what he does. Hopefully you get a little stipend for being the mayor of Kansas City, the Honorable Quentin Lucas.
Thank you so very much. It is so exciting to be with you, ladies, gentlemen, Mr. Notberg, and all of my friends here today. Every year, this is a breakfast we look forward to. It's bright and early in the morning. We get to see a lot of people who are making a difference. This morning, of course, we recognize some of the challenges we face as a city. We lost a middle schooler at a middle school to a homicide. We continue to see too many situations of tragedy and strife and challenge in our city each and every day. And so part of, as I was coming here today and talking to folks and getting ready for the challenges, so many people were asking things like, what do we do? And there are always new ideas, new initiatives, new funds. But there are also things and people like you who make differences in the lives of families and in communities each and every day. So I come here today with a heavy heart, knowing that there is a middle school of students with a heavy heart, that there are many people with heavy hearts. And I say very simply, thank you. Through challenging times, challenging situations, each and every day, each and every year, you keep coming back and making a difference. And I thank our volunteers, our funders, our staff, and our friends, because this city wouldn't run without you. Think about the lives that you've touched in a positive way. Think about the lives that you'll be able to change in the year ahead, the families, the trajectories, the paths that you'll be able to change. I know I'm not here to be a keynote speaker, so I'll wrap with just saying this. Please make sure that as we think about all of the things that sometimes John has to talk about on the news or I have to talk about, the tremendous impact that you can make this morning and every day with Casa. Thank you so much for all who are involved. Please dig deep with your support. And more than anything, let's continue to stay committed to changing lives for the better for every family in Kansas City. God bless you and thank you.
Nice, very nice. Mayor Quentin Lucas. Difficult, certainly, but important words, and we appreciate your being here, Mayor. Our keynote speaker is with us today, and as is often the case, it's been a couple of years, but they're why we're here. The stories they share and the story we're going to hear this morning from Brittany about how she's working to reunify her family after difficult challenges and how the child welfare system has been navigated and has worked for or against her. I think it's an important story as well for all of us to hear, and I want to invite Brittany to join me on stage now and share her story. Brittany, thank you.
Got to take my big paper clip off. I'm kind of a big deal. All right. Good morning. My name is Brittany Daniels, and I'm very happy to be here this morning. I'm extremely nervous, but very happy. I'm especially happy to have my friends and family here with me as well. Usually by this time, I'm taking my youngest to daycare after getting my oldest kids ready and putting them on the bus. If you have kids, then I'm guessing our weeknights are pretty similar to y'all's. We have homework, reading, sports practices, band concerts, and even family chores. I'd like to say we're a pretty normal family. If you had told me 5 years ago that I would be standing in front of you this morning telling you the difference that Casa made in our lives, I would have looked at you like you're absolutely crazy. I would never believe that anyone cared about me or my story, and I would never believe that Casa was on my side. At one point, I thought Casa was the enemy. And if I couldn't get my babies back, then what was the point of me getting clean and sober? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start from the beginning. I grew up with a single drug addict mom, and my dad left us when I was 6 months old. And one of the only stable people we had in our lives was my grandma. When I was 8 years old, my grandmother passed away. That's when my mom's addiction kicked in and my trauma began. That's when my life turned upside down. Sorry. Because of my mom's addiction and being unstable, I stayed with different relatives, friends of my mom, and from the ages of 8 to 16, I was in and out of the system. I moved around a lot. I attended 23 different schools my whole entire life. So at an early age, I learned to be very independent. I also vowed to myself at a young age I would never do drugs, because the last thing I wanted to be like was my mom. I even made promises to my aunt to never be like her. Unfortunately, I didn't keep the promise. By age 15, I had brought a new friend over from school, and she had saw my mom smoking crack at the kitchen table. She kept pressuring me to try it, and eventually I gave in. That's when promises were broken, and that's when my addiction kicked in. I was in Houston with my mom then, and we were living in a car, and I was still in school. After I started getting high, the student who always made good grades and had great attendance barely passed my sophomore year and missed more than half the school year. So we moved back to Missouri, where we lived before my grandmother had passed and my mom was doing the best she had done my whole life. It was the one place I could start over for my senior year and graduate on time. I wanted a better life, I honestly did. I started working 80 hours a week to support my mother and I. Mom had moved on from crack to meth, and that made her more physically and mentally abusive more than ever. It was a very toxic environment. But I finally graduated on time, thank God. So when I turned 19 and I met a man 8 years older than me, I thought it was a better option than living with my mother. We moved in together, and about 4 months in our relationship, I was pregnant with my first child. By that time, I was only smoking weed, but what I didn't know was that my boyfriend had a pill problem before we had met. When I was prescribed prescription pain pills after my first cesarean, I liked the way they made me feel. And despite us using pain pills together, we got along very well. And it wasn't long before I was pregnant with my second child. I didn't use while I was pregnant, but afterwards we started using pain pills a lot more. And after 3 cesareans, pain pills always seemed to make their way back in my life. And when we couldn't get prescriptions and we ripped off all our dealers, we started shooting heroin. That's when things went from bad to worse. Sorry. We had lost our house scene and we were living in a hotel, and we both decided to quit cold turkey. Fortunately for one of my mom's friends calling the Division of Family Services, one of the caseworkers showed up and she could tell we were in withdrawal, trying to get clean. They let us keep our kids. We were really sick from withdrawing even a month or so into it. Someone told us meth would make us feel normal and help us get through the withdrawals from heroin. That's when we began shooting meth. I didn't really like it, but I would do anything to make my body feel normal from what the heroin did to it. I cannot state this strongly enough. Meth ruins lives. It changes people. It's the devil itself, and it tears families apart. Meth made my mom more physically and abusive more than ever, and then it happened with my kids' dad as well. Although we had always gotten along really well before, meth had changed him. It chemically imbalanced his brain. He became mentally and physically abusive, paranoid, crazy, and someone I grew not to know anymore. When he had called my probation officer 20 times overnight, threatening to kill me and the kids, the police, DFS, and my mom showed up the next morning and extracted us from his care at the hotel. The Division of Family Services said if I left him, I could keep my kids. So we left. But I didn't have anywhere to go, and no matter where we went, he would always find us. We were moving around a lot, and my oldest at the time, age 7, had missed 21 days of school, which triggered another call to DFS. That time, they took all 3 of my children, ages 7, 4, and 1. That was the hardest thing I've ever experienced in my life. Sorry. No one will ever understand what it feels like to literally get your children ripped from your arms and have no control over it. But it needed to happen. I needed to get healthy, I just didn't know it at the time. I didn't know what healthy was. The only parts of my life who had ever been healthy was my grandma, my aunt, my godparents, my children, and they were all taken from me. I needed inpatient drug rehab, but I kept getting kicked out of programs because of drugs in my system or my crappy attitude. I was very aggressive, broken, unloved, and just sick. Finally, I found Hope City. It was a Sunday night around 10 p.m., and I was pregnant with my 4th child. And the head lady over the women's house let me stay the night because I had nowhere else to go. Even though there was a waiting list, by the grace of God, they let me stay. I became a Christian and started doing a 3-month inpatient track. When that was over, after being there for 6 months, I still didn't feel ready. I decided to move to a transitional women's recovery house. I wanted to prove to the state that I could get a job and pay my bills. I got a job, and every paycheck I sent my parent aid a copy of my deposit slips. I saved for 3 months to get my deposit from my first apartment. I even had to pay extra because I had a prior eviction on my record. The prior eviction almost prevented me from getting the apartment at all. The realization of what my addiction had done was catching up to me. Old bills to pay off, evictions, no license, owing prior bank accounts almost prevented me from getting the bank account to save. Everything seemed like roadblocks. But I took one thing at a time. I paid off my old bills, I got the bank account to save, I got my license back, I started doing what I called normal life things I longed for my entire life. My youngest Liam was born while I was doing the recovery track at Hope City. He was taken from me at 4 days old. Again, it felt like my heart was getting ripped out. The owner of Hope City introduced me to Micah, another godsend. Sorry. I trusted Micah would give me my baby back when I got better, and as I got better, I earned unsupervised visitations with him. And my relationship with Micah grew into a friendship, and she is one of my biggest cheerleaders. My 3 oldest were placed with their godmom, Jamie. My recovery was taking so long that after a year, the state was pushing to terminate my parental rights and for Jamie to adopt my kids. A year might not seem like a long time, but for an addict who is fighting to get sober and repair past trauma, it's not that long at all. Against my wishes, the goal was changed to adoption, and Jamie was going to adopt my kids. But when I showed up to a visit that got canceled, I learned that the kids were placed somewhere else. Jamie believed in me, and she knew that the longer the kids stayed with her, the less chance I had of getting them home. By refusing to be their adoptive resource, she was buying me more time. That time is what I needed. I was almost there. The turning point came for me in April of 2018 when Ann, the Casa volunteer for my kids, Anika, the attorney, and Laura, their case supervisor, all supported changing the goal for my kids from adoption back to reunification. I was hopeless for so long, but the hope of getting my kids back gave me the strength to go on. I knew Casa was there for my kids, and once they believed I was the best option for them, they were there for me too. After I got Liam back, I started to get overnights with my older kids. I'll never forget my first overnight was Christmas of 2018. I wanted them home so bad. A lot of people don't understand when you're on supervised visits, you're on a parent aid schedule, and most don't work holidays. So for 2.5 years, I missed every holiday and every birthday. That Christmas, their Casa volunteer, Ann, and the team said if Alyssa, which was head of the women's household at the time, one of my best friends, and eventually became my maid of honor, would stay with us that night, my babies could have their first overnight visit with me. From there, their overnights progressed from 1 to 3. It looked like I was finally going to be able to get my babies back. But the apartment I was living in with just Liam was too small. I had been seeing a guy, and together we leased a 3-bedroom house that we turned into a 4-bedroom. The relationship didn't work out long term, but I was working enough that I was able to take over the lease by myself. I was living sober, and I had my kids, and I had a healthy, stable home. Casa even helped with Christmas gifts for the first year of being in my house, and it was amazing. We felt extremely blessed. It has been challenging parenting sober. I have to parent differently than I was ever parented. I had to learn to give and receive love, even though I never really experienced it myself. I've always wanted to be the mom they deserved, but wanting to get sober for them was not enough. I had to want to change my life for me before I could help them. Life is different now and better than I've ever imagined it. I've been married for almost 6 months now to a good man. My husband is my first real, healthy, loving, sober relationship, and we love it. He is so good with my kids and the best father they could ask for. My daughter is making straight A's. She wants to be a doctor when she grows up. My boys are doing well. Landon's reading levels have made such major improvements. Leland is one of the smartest kids in his class in math, and Liam is so smart. By the time he was age 3, he could read and write his own name. And we also have my stepson who comes on the weekend who loves to play video games with his dad. I love having routines, consistency, and stability now. It's the little things that sustain my family. We even have dinner together, homework, chores, and a bedtime routine. I have gas in my car, a checking account, a savings account, a roof over our head, and I have the best friend group a girl could ever ask for. And through this process, I have even made more friendships that I know will last me a lifetime. And as silly as this may sound, my kids have been in the same school district for the last 5 years. That's a huge goal of mine. My faith in God has helped me get to this point in my life, and Casa's faith in me has helped me get my kids back. The relationship I built with Miss Ann, I will cherish forever. Sorry. She taught me things about myself I didn't always see. I appreciate her toughness on me, even though she may not know that. I appreciate her willingness to never give up on me when I wanted to give up on myself. I love being able to reach out to her to this day and tell her when exciting and new things are happening in our lives. She's not just a Casa volunteer to us anymore, she's family. Growing up, I always felt like a statistic to fail, someone whose life was ruined by parents who just didn't care enough. I had a hard life and I was lost, and I'd lost my kids. But now I'm found and I have a home with a better life. I'm not just a statistic anymore, I'm a success story. I got my kids back with all the odds against me. I have an amazing testimony I get to share, and I'm very grateful I got to share it with everyone today. For the next parent going through this, I want you to know you're not alone. You don't have to fight this alone, and Casa will be the fighting force for you. You just have to want it first. And for everyone here, when you support Casa, you are supporting families like mine. You are helping put families back together. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, Brittany, thank you so much for being so open and vulnerable and willing to share your family's story and your journey. And what really stands out to me about Brittany's story is that while she was working so incredibly hard on getting sober and providing that safe and healthy home environment, our Casa team was there with all of her amazing kids every step of the way through the child welfare system. Her volunteer, Ann, and our amazing staff were there working just as hard. So speaking of staff, I want to take just a minute to thank the Casa staff for their dedication, for their hard work, for getting up and doing this every single day. And I also want to thank our board of directors. You know, being on a board of directors is a big responsibility. It's a hard job in normal times. But during a pandemic, and add on top of that a capital campaign, I really appreciate the leadership and direction of our board. So if you are a Casa staff member or board member, please stand. You truly are the people behind the success story like Brittany's and her family, so I thank you. So one of the things that's really important to us here at Casa is that we start this breakfast on time and we end on time. So I've got probably just about 1 minute to share with you the importance of today. You know, at Jackson County Casa, every little bit counts. Your support matters. We use every dollar to ensure that kids receive a safe and permanent home as quickly as possible, and that they receive the educational services, medical services, therapeutic services that they need along the way. So you have a real chance today to make a difference. It matters, and you absolutely matter. And giving to Casa is easy. Couple of ways you could do this. You may leave a donation in the basket at your table. You may text us at Casa KC 866-496-1456, kind of a long number, so we'll put it up on screen. Or on the way out, volunteers are waiting to accept your donation via credit card or debit card. You can have that swiped, get on your way back to work. I want to just say a very heartfelt thank you from our staff, from our volunteers, and our board for being here today, getting up bright and early, and most importantly, for supporting our kids, our Casa kids. So thank you, and have a wonderful day. I think we are adjourned, John. We have a couple of quick instructions, and I hope you have a terrific day.
Angie, I think it's safe to say that we don't do this without your great work as well. So, Angie Blummel keeps the well-oiled machine running. We are going to get out of here on time. We try to do this every year. We thank you for being here. Brittany, thank you for your amazing story and having your family here. Congratulations. Keep up the great work. Thanks to the Casa volunteers who made it possible. If you're interested in being a Casa volunteer or want to learn more about the program, we have a table out there. You can stop by and talk up some of the volunteers and learn more about it. They have training sessions that are set up to guide you through the process. Last but not least, please share. And thank you all for being here. I'll say again from the bottom of my heart, you all look great. It is so good to be back together. Thank you for what you're doing for court-appointed special advocates. Have a great day. I'll see you tonight, and God bless.